Hello, everyone. I thought I'd do a live video because I need your help. Um, I'm really looking at the idea of getting off the ground a disability consciousness raising group program or scheme. Um, Initially with disabled staff in universities, but it could go beyond that. Um, and I've been obviously doing a literature search to look at different models and different writings about the idea of consciousness raising, the concept. Um, and for those of you familiar with consciousness raising, it really came out of the experiences of the women's liberation movement in the late 1960s, early 1970s. And Kathy Sarah Child has written a lot about this, about the argument in support of the idea of consciousness raising, explaining what it is, and coming up with some modelling. And obviously, since the 1970s to probably the late 80s, there was a proliferation of consciousness raising groups of women around the world. In fact, I joined the tail end of that myself in Australia. I joined a group in 1979. Um, so that really is the basis. The consciousness raising also has a different historical and practice tradition from maybe Ferrere's conscientization movement, that comes from a different kind of paradigm. Um, I guess the issue of consciousness raising and disability came up for me about 2 years ago when I was working on a project interviewing disabled men in jail, so disabled prisoners. Um, and the group that I was interviewing, it was only a small group, but they were mainly of the older age. But what was clear to me when in the process of doing those interviews was that many of them had actually acquired a disability or an impairment whilst they were in jail. And before that, they were kind of they identified as able-bodied men, and they were kind of somewhat healthy and muscular and all that sort of thing. But what struck me in the process of interviewing them is that there had been limited, or in fact no opportunities for them to process their experience of acquiring a disability, being exposed to and being mentored by other disabled prisoners or other people with disabilities. Um, it was pretty hit and miss, and there was a need for some kind of disability immersion program where there was mentoring and peer support. Um, and I observed that, and I kind of left it for a while because life takes over. But I think the issue also has kind of been ticking away and re-emerged. I'm involved in a disabled staff network at my university, and one of the challenges in running a disabled staff network is getting people to join the network. Some people don't identify as being disabled, or they think they've got a kind of hierarchy of disability in their head, so they don't think they're disabled enough. And the whole legitimacy of disability issue comes up, so they don't join. And then there are other staff who won't join the disabled staff network because they are fearful about disclosing, and rightfully so. They are very worried about that it will affect their career progression. They will be exposed to higher levels of surveillance, and they'll be outed effectively. So a number of staff don't disclose that they have disabilities. And this is not isolated to any particular discipline. In fact, there are a number of researchers and academics working in disability studies who actually don't disclose that they have a disability as well for a variety of reasons. So I guess what I wanted to say was so there are challenges then with running disabled staff networks. I mean, I'm involved in university, but other employment groups like the NHS, etc., have disabled staff networks. So it's very hard to get people to come on board, and then to engage with others. And so one of the things I was thinking about is uh, the usefulness of having a disability consciousness raising program. And I probably should have said earlier, I'll get this. Sorry, I'm a bit tired, but I'll get this also. The other factor that was kind of the push factors for this was we're in the middle of the global COVID epidemic. And one of the things, at least in the UK, that's happened is that if you have a underlying health condition or a chronic illness, certainly during lockdown when people were shielding, it was mandated that you had to have a conversation with your line manager. Certainly was in my university. So what that did is it compelled people who maybe were hiding in the backdrops and not disclosing to out themselves to disclose to their line manager that they had a underlying health condition. Um, and at the same time that was happening, what also happened, and again, this is like through Facebook, was you probably remember in the early stages of lockdown, there was we started seeing the flourishing of these mutual aid groups because people weren't that confident about the government coming up with the responses, but also people wanted to, engage with community building and community support at the local level. And again, in those groups, there was this kind of inflow of people with underlying health conditions mingling for the first time, often with people traditionally regarded as disabled, and having to negotiate conversations about language and some of the kind of disability adjustment and process issues. So that has brought this issue to a head. That's a very long rounded story. I'm been asked to speak at Birmingham on the 2nd of December around disability consciousness raising and COVID and what the possibilities might be. But really what I wanted to post this video today was really to ask for your help, because I'm really interested in finding out whether in the UK or abroad, whether anybody is aware of any. Have you used consciousness raising groups? I'm not necessarily talking about peer mentoring. I want some kind of sense of an explicit kind of consciousness raising program. If you can get in touch with me, and if you're happy to share that knowledge and get the conversation going, that would be great. My email address is f.k.campbell at Dundee edu .uk. So you can look me up anyway if you didn't get that email address. Just put Fiona Kamari Campbell into Google and you'll find me. But yeah, I mean, it would be really, I'm just really looking for information. I've been looking through literature searches and, Google Scholar and things like that. I'm not coming up with much. So my idea is eventually to come up with, if we could come out with a group of people developing some kind of model program that we can roll out, either through staff networks or through other forums, get them running, get them happening, and hopefully through the kind of praxis model of experience and reflection and evaluation, we can fine tune it and get these these kind of groups going, so that firstly people can develop a sense of solace that often what's happening to them is a shared experience. We can look at those themes, and we can and the idea behind consciousness raising, of course, is to move things from the individual to the social, with a view of developing political strategies, and at the same time provide mutual support. So that's really all I want to say at this stage. So I really welcome getting the conversation going around disability and consciousness raising. The more the merrier. Contact me, and let's see what happens. So thank you all, and I hope to hear from some of you soon.